You want me to do what now? The gelatinous mass of translucent purple goo that served as my academic advisor wobbled disapprovingly. I could tell it was disapproving because the sparkly bits inside it, which I assumed were either organs or decoration, honestly couldn't tell, were clustering into what looked suspiciously like a frowny face. Miss Chen, it burbled through its universal translator. As Earth's first exchange student to Galactic High, you represent not just your species, but your entire planet. The least you could do is participate in one extracurricular activity. I slumped deeper into the anti-grav chair, which adjusted its cushioning field to cradle my definitely not gelatinous human body. Yeah, but competitive molecular reorganization? I can barely reorganize my sock drawer. The blob, sorry, Dr. Blob. Professor Dr. Zixthilix, if you wanted to get technical about it, but I'd given up trying to pronounce that on day one. Rippled in what I recognized as their equivalent of an exasperated sigh. Miss Chen, you are aware that humans are the only known species capable of visualizing complex four-dimensional molecular structures without cybernetic enhancement? We are? I blinked. Since when? Since always. How do you think your species developed chemistry in the first place? I don't know. Trial and error, lots of explosions. Pretty sure that's how my high school chem lab went anyway. Another ripple. Miss Chen, your species routinely manipulates complex organic molecules in your sleep. Your bodies perform quantum calculations that our most advanced computers struggle with. Your brain's ability to model and predict molecular behavior is, quite frankly, terrifying. I sat up straighter. Hang on, are you telling me humans are secretly super geniuses? No, Dr. Blob replied dryly. I'm telling you that humans have one very specific cognitive ability that happens to be uniquely suited to this particular competition. The rest of the time, you're exactly as clever as you appear to be. Was that an insult? Your ability to detect sarcasm is also apparently functioning normally. They extended a pseudopod to tap at their holoscreen. I'm signing you up for the team. Practice starts tomorrow after 6th period. But, no buts, and Miss Chen? Their sparkly bits formed what I swore was a smirk. Try not to blow anything up this time. The thing about being the only human in a school of 17,000 alien students is that you get used to being the weird one pretty quick. Sure, the first few weeks were rough, especially when I discovered that the universal translators didn't work on body language, leading to several embarrassing incidents where what I thought was a friendly wave turned out to be a marriage proposal in 3 different species cultures. But eventually you adapt. You learn that the methane breathers from Epsilon Eridani think your oxygen dependency is adorably quaint. You figure out which cafeteria synthesizers can actually reproduce Earth food without making it taste like feet. You accept that yes, you are going to be forever known as the squishy one by the silicon-based life forms, and apparently you get voluntold into joining the molecular reorganization team because your species can do complex chemistry in their sleep. Which, by the way, was news to me. I'd always thought those weird dreams about floating through tunnels of DNA were just my brain's way of processing too much biology homework. You're late, announced Team Captain Krathos as I slouched into the practice room. Krathos was a Regelian, which meant they looked like what you'd get if you crossed a praying mantis with a supercomputer and then covered the whole thing in iridescent scales. Their compound eyes swiveled to track my movement as I found an empty station. Sorry, I mumbled. Got lost. This place is bigger on the inside than the outside. That's because the practice room exists in 11 dimensions, chirped Pip, the team's resident energy being. They manifested as a cheerful ball of blue light that liked to bounce around the room like a hyperactive firefly. 7 of them are spatial. Right, of course they are. I squinted at the holographic workspace floating in front of me. So, what exactly am I supposed to do here? Krathos clicked their mandibles and what I'd learned was their version of eye-rolling. We are preparing for the regional championships. Each team member must demonstrate proficiency in standard molecular manipulation scenarios. Your first task is to optimize this simple protein fold. A complex molecule appeared in my workspace, rotating slowly. It looked like a mess of tangled ribbons and balls. Simple, they say, I muttered, poking at it with the haptic interface. Right, just like untangling earbuds, no problem. To my surprise, as soon as I started manipulating the molecule, something clicked. It was like one of those 3D magic eye pictures suddenly snapping into focus. I could see how it wanted to fold, could feel the way the electromagnetic forces pushed and pulled at different parts of the structure. Huh, I said, twisting one section around and watching the rest of the molecule respond. That's neat. Impossible, Krathos buzzed. They'd moved to hover over my shoulder, all four arms crossed. You cannot have solved it already. The standard optimization time for this problem is 13 minutes. Solved what? I looked up from where I'd been absent-mindedly rearranging the molecule like a puzzle cube. I was just playing with it. The hologram flashed green and displayed a completion message. The protein had folded itself into a neat, compact structure that honestly looked pretty satisfying. Like when you finally get all your Tupperware to nest properly. Holy photons, Pip breathed, their glow dimming in shock. She did it in under 2 minutes, and she wasn't even trying. Beginner's luck? I offered weakly, as the entire team turned to stare at me. Krathos's mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before they managed to speak. Do another one. So I did, and another after that. Each time the solution just seemed to fall into place, like my brain was running some background process I hadn't known about. It was actually kind of fun once I got into it. Like those fidget toys that were popular back on Earth, except instead of clicking and spinning, I was rearranging matter at the molecular level. Extraordinary, murmured Professor Vetsk, the team's faculty advisor, after watching me breeze through a particularly tricky enzyme reconstruction. They were a Venusian gas cloud entity who normally manifested as a shimmering fog bank. But right now they were so excited they'd condensed into actual droplets. Simply extraordinary. With this level of native ability. Miss Chen, you could take us all the way to the Galactic Finals. The finals? I squeaked. No pressure or anything. Oh, there's pressure, Krathos assured me grimly. The finals are hosted by the Arcturians this year. They've won the championship 12 cycles in a row. They have cybernetic enhancements. They're also total jerks about it, Pip added helpfully. Last year they made the Betelgeuse team cry, all 17 of their eyes. Great, I sighed. So no pressure, just the reputation of Earth riding on my apparently superhuman ability to play molecular Tetris. What could possibly go wrong? As it turned out, quite a lot could go wrong. And did. The regional championships were held on a space station orbiting Proxima Centauri, which meant we had to take a wormhole express to get there. Have you ever had motion sickness in 11 dimensions? Let me tell you, it's not fun. Especially when the bathroom facilities are designed for species that dissolve their waste products in acid. But we made it, and even better, we qualified for the semifinals, which is how I found myself face-to-face with the Arcturian team captain, whose name I couldn't pronounce but whose attitude needed no translation. How quaint, they sneered, their cybernetic eyes whirring as they focused on me. The primitives are allowing their pet to compete. I'd like to say I came up with a witty retort. Something cool and sophisticated that would show them humans weren't to be underestimated. What actually came out was, yeah, well, your mother was a single-celled organism. Look, I never claimed to be good at trash talk. The Arcturian cybernetic implants flickered in what might have been amusement or murderous rage. Hard to tell with cyborgs. We'll see how well your organic computing holds up against real processing power, primitive. Did they just threaten me with better math? I whispered to Krathos as we took our positions for the final round. Focus, they clicked back. This is the hardest challenge yet. A full protein synthesis and optimization problem, with bonus points for energy efficiency. I cracked my knuckles, ignoring the horrified looks from the species who didn't have joints that made those kinds of noises. Right, no pressure, just gotta show these cyber snobs what Earth girls are made of. The holographic workspace lit up, and the challenge molecule appeared. It was the most complex structure I'd seen yet, a twisted maze of atomic bonds and potential energy states. The Arcturian team immediately began processing it, their cybernetic interfaces humming as they fed the problem into their enhanced neural networks. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. And then, just like in practice, I let my weird human brain do its thing. The molecule danced under my fingers. Bonds broke and reformed. Atoms shifted positions like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. I wasn't thinking about it consciously anymore. It was pure instinct, like catching a ball or riding a bike. Some deep, ancient part of my brain that had evolved to model complex systems took over, and I just went with it. Time sort of lost meaning. I was vaguely aware of gasps and murmurs from the audience, but they seemed far away. All that mattered was the elegant dance of electrons, the subtle push and pull of molecular forces, the satisfaction of watching chaos resolve itself into perfect order. Time, called the judge, snapping me back to reality. Submissions will now be evaluated. I blinked, coming out of my molecule-induced trance to find everyone staring at my workspace. The Arcturian team's leader had their mouth open in a very un-cyborg-like display of shock. What? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. Did I do it wrong? Professor Vetsk had condensed so much they were practically solid. Miss Chen, you just synthesized a completely new protein structure, one that's 30% more efficient than the target molecule, in 17 minutes. Oh. I looked at my creation, still rotating serenely in the hologram. Is that good? Good? Pip was bouncing so excitedly they were leaving trails of light in the air. It's impossible. Even the most advanced quantum computers take hours to design new proteins from scratch. The judges have reached a decision, announced the head official, their voice resonating through the chamber. In an unprecedented ruling, first place is awarded to Galactic High's team, with special commendation for their human competitor's innovative solution. The Arcturian team's leader made a sound like a dial-up modem having a stroke. We won? I said weakly. We won! Krathos actually lifted me off the ground in their excitement, all four arms hugging me before they remembered humans were squishable and quickly set me down again. As our team celebrated and the audience buzzed with excitement, I caught sight of Dr. Blob in the stands. Their sparkly bits had arranged themselves into what was definitely a smug grin. Miss Chen, they burbled as I passed them on the way to accept our trophy, which, in keeping with the theme, was a perfect molecular crystal. I trust this experience has been educational. I thought about it. In the past few weeks, I'd learned that humans had weird brain powers we didn't know about, helped win an impossible competition, and maybe even advanced the field of protein engineering by accident. All because some blob of an academic advisor had decided to sign me up for an extracurricular activity. Yeah, I admitted. I guess you could say that. Excellent. In that case, might I suggest joining the Quantum Topology Club next semester? I hear humans have some fascinating natural abilities when it comes to visualizing string theory. I groaned. Let me guess, we do that in our sleep too? Their sparkly bits twinkled mysteriously. Actually, you do it while daydreaming. Why did you think humans spend so much time staring into space? I opened my mouth to protest, then closed it again as I realized I'd been absent-mindedly calculating the wave function of my coffee that morning while waiting for the synthesizer to finish brewing it. Fine, I sighed. Sign me up. But if we end up accidentally solving the unified field theory or something, I'm blaming you. Of course, Miss Chen. Dr. Blob rippled contentedly. That's what academic advisors are for. Later, during the celebration party, which had to be held in 17 different rooms simultaneously to accommodate all the different atmospheric requirements, I found myself floating in the low-gravity observation deck, watching the light of Proxima Centauri paint patterns across the station's force fields. Pip bobbed up next to me, their glow dimmed to a comfortable evening level. Penny for your thoughts? That is the correct Earth idiom, yes? Close enough, I smiled. I was just thinking, maybe being the weird one isn't so bad. I mean, every species here has something special they can do, right? Something that makes them unique? Indeed! Pip brightened enthusiastically. The Rigellians can process visual information from 9 different spectrum bands simultaneously. The Venusians can exist in multiple states of matter at once. The Arcturians can, well, they can buy very expensive cybernetic enhancements. I laughed. And humans can apparently do advanced chemistry with the part of our brains that other species use for cybernetic enhancement. That's pretty cool when you think about it. Very cool, Pip agreed, though I still don't understand how you do it. I shrugged, watching a solar flare dance across the force field. Honestly, neither do we. But I'm starting to think that's kind of the point. Every species here today evolved to solve different problems, developed different ways of thinking and seeing and being. Put us all together, and you get something greater than the sum of its parts, Pip finished. Like a perfectly folded protein molecule. Exactly, I grinned. Though don't tell the Arcturians I said that. They're still trying to process their loss. Literally, I think I saw their leader plugged into a console running debug protocols. Pip flickered with laughter. Don't worry. By next semester they'll have convinced themselves it was a statistical anomaly. Though they might change their minds when they see what humans can do with quantum topology. Please don't remind me, I groaned. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to explain to my parents that I'm taking classes in 11-dimensional math. Oh, that's easy, Pip chirped. Just tell them you're doing it in your sleep anyway. And you know what? They weren't wrong. That night, my dreams were full of shifting geometries and dancing probability clouds, dimensions folding and unfolding like cosmic origami. And somewhere, in the back of my very weird, very human brain, I could have sworn I heard the universe laughing with us, not at us, as we fumbled our way toward understanding it. Being the weird one, it turns out, was exactly where I belonged. So let me get this straight, I said, staring at the quantum topology workspace floating in front of me. You want me to visualize a 12-dimensional manifold folding through non-Euclidean space while simultaneously maintaining awareness of its probability distribution across multiple timeline branches? Precisely! Professor Tezix beamed at me with all three of their probability matrices. As a quantum phase entity, they existed in multiple states at once, which made eye contact a bit tricky, just like you humans do when you daydream about impossible geometric shapes. You mean when we zone out thinking about M.C. Escher paintings? Exactly. Though I must say, discovering that artwork was quite distressing for many of our mathematics faculty. Several of them had to take mental health leave after realizing humans had been casually drawing impossible geometries for entertainment centuries before developing formal dimensional theory. I slumped in my seat, which today was configured as a quantum probability cloud to accommodate some of my more ethereal classmates. No pressure or anything? It had been 3 months since the Molecular Reorganization Championships, and my newfound status as that human who does weird stuff with her brain had only grown. Turned out winning a galactic-level competition by accidentally inventing a new form of protein engineering got you a bit of attention. Who knew? The Quantum Topology Club was different. For one thing, the classroom technically existed in a superposition of several dozen locations at once, which made being late to class less of an excuse and more of a philosophical question. For another, half my classmates were beings of pure mathematics who found the concept of having a fixed number of limbs horrifyingly primitive. "Don't worry," chirped a familiar voice as Pip materialized next to me. They'd joined the club too, claiming it would be fun to watch the human break physics again. Some friends you just can't shake, even across multiple dimensional planes. Just do what you did in molecular reorganization. Let your weird human brain take over. I'm pretty sure protein folding is a bit different from quantum topology, I grumbled, but I closed my eyes anyway and tried to let my mind wander. The thing about human daydreaming, I'd learned, was that it wasn't random at all. Our brains had evolved to model complex systems, to imagine impossible things and then figure out how to make them possible. We did it so naturally we didn't even notice. Like how you can dream about flying without understanding aerodynamics, or imagine a four-sided triangle without your brain exploding. So I thought about impossible shapes, about staircases that went up forever while always coming back to the start, about Klein bottles pouring themselves into their own insides, about... Fascinating. Professor Tezix's voice snapped me back to reality, or at least the closest approximation of reality you get in a quantum topology classroom. Miss Chen, are you aware you just visualized a stable quantum knot in 13 dimensions? I blinked at the writhing shape in my workspace. It looked like a pretzel had gotten drunk and decided to square dance with a Mobius strip. I did? Indeed. And more impressively, you've somehow incorporated elements of classical topology that shouldn't be possible in quantum space. All three of their probability matrices were spinning excitedly. This could revolutionize our understanding of quantum geometry. Oh no, I groaned. Not again. Oh yes, Pip bounced gleefully. The humans done it again. Quick, someone call the Arcturians. I want to see their cybernetics glitch out when they hear about this. Please don't, I begged. I'm still getting angry quantum mail from their team captain about the protein thing. Yesterday they sent me a proof trying to demonstrate that humans shouldn't exist according to information theory. Well, said a new voice, smooth as liquid mathematics. Perhaps they have a point. The temperature in the classroom dropped several probability curves as a tall, sleek figure materialized from the quantum foam. They were Arcturian, but not like the students I'd competed against. This was an adult, their cybernetics so advanced they seemed to blur at the edges where reality couldn't quite keep up with their enhancements. Dr. Zeiss, Professor Tizix acknowledged, their matrices dimming respectfully. To what do we owe the honor? Word travels fast in quantum space, the Arcturian scientist said, their cybernetic eyes whirring as they focused on me. Especially when someone manages to violate 3 fundamental laws of topology before their first coffee break. I straightened in my quantum probability cloud chair. Look, whatever I didn't mean to break physics. Again, it just sort of happened? Precisely the problem. Dr. Zeiss's voice was colder than liquid helium. Humans, always just happening to revolutionize fields of science you barely understand, always stumbling across solutions that should be impossible. It's untidy. Now, see here, Professor Tezix began, but the Arcturian cut them off with a wave of their quantum-enhanced hand. The Galactic Academic Council has taken notice, they continued. Questions are being asked. How can a species that hasn't even mastered stable fusion be casually rewriting our understanding of quantum geometry? How can biological brains without cybernetic enhancement process 12-dimensional space? It's not natural. Pretty sure that's what the Neanderthals said about abstract thinking, I muttered. Then, louder. Has it occurred to you that maybe you're looking at it backward? Maybe we can do these things because we don't know they're supposed to be impossible. Dr. Sai's cybernetic eyes narrowed. The Council has decided to launch a formal investigation. All humans in advanced programs will be required to submit to extensive testing to ensure they are not using unauthorized methods. Unauthorized methods? Pip flared indignantly. She's using her brain. Since when is thinking unauthorized? Since it produced results that our most advanced quantum computers cannot replicate, the Arcturian replied smoothly. Surely you understand our concern. For the good of galactic academia, we must ensure all participants are operating within acceptable parameters. I stood up, my quantum probability chair dispersing in a huff. Acceptable parameters? Let me guess. Parameters defined by species that think linear algebra is cutting-edge math? Who decided your way of thinking was the only acceptable one? The temperature dropped another few probability curves. Even Professor Tezix's matrices had stopped spinning. Careful, Miss Chen, Dr. Saiz said softly. That almost sounded like insurgent thinking. We wouldn't want anyone to start questioning the established order of things, would we? Too late, I replied, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. Questioning things is what humans do best. Well, that and imagining impossible shapes while daydreaming about lunch. Speaking of impossible shapes, I noticed my quantum workspace was still active. The weird pretzel knot thing I'd created was still spinning there, its geometry flickering between dimensions like a soap bubble in a tornado. An idea hit me, a crazy, impossible, completely human idea. Tell you what, I said, reaching for the controls. Instead of testing me, how about I teach you something? About how humans think. Before anyone could stop me, I grabbed my quantum knot visualization and did what humans do best. I stopped thinking about whether it was possible and just did it anyway. The classroom erupted in gasps and several probability fluctuations as my impossible shape began to unfold. But instead of collapsing into quantum chaos like it should have, it transformed. The mathematics of classical topology merged with quantum geometry in ways that hurt to look at, producing something that was simultaneously impossible and absolutely real. That's not... Dr. Zeiss's cybernetics were actually smoking slightly as they tried to process what they were seeing. Not possible? I grinned. Welcome to how humans think. We don't care what's possible. We see patterns you don't because we're not trained to ignore them. We solve problems you can't because no one told us they were unsolvable. And yeah, sometimes we break physics a little, but only because physics forgot to childproof itself against imagination. The Arcturian scientist was making a sound like a quantum computer trying to divide by zero. Professor Tezix's matrices were spinning so fast, they'd achieved temporal harmony with Pip's excited bouncing. Miss Chen, my professor managed finally. I believe you've just invented an entirely new field of mathematics. Again. Cool, I said. Can I still get extra credit for it? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need it after this. Dr. Zeiss pulled themselves together with visible effort. This will have to be reported to the council. Go ahead, I shrugged. But you might want to warn them first. I hear some council members are still recovering from finding out about human music. Apparently the idea that we invented math just to make pretty sounds broke several of their logic circuits. The Arcturian vanished in a huff of quantum indignation, leaving behind only a faint smell of ozone and wounded pride. Well, Pip said into the resulting silence, I guess that's one way to handle an academic investigation. Professor Tizix was still staring at my quantum classical hybrid monstrosity with all three probability matrices. Miss Chen, would you be interested in publishing a paper? I believe several major journals would literally break causality to be the first to print this. I looked at the shape I'd created, really looked at it. It was beautiful in a headache-inducing way. Like one of those magic eye pictures had a baby with a tessellating Escher print, then sent it to live with its quantum physicist aunt. Pure human imagination, translated into mathematics that shouldn't work but did anyway. Yeah, I said. Why not? But I'm putting a warning label on it. Caution. Contains human thinking. May cause spontaneous paradigm shifts and temporary breakdown of established physical laws. Pip flickered with laughter. You realize this means the Arcturians are going to be even more upset with you, right? I grinned. Good. Maybe it'll inspire them to think outside the box. You know, that impossible box that only exists in 7 dimensions simultaneously while being folded through its own Klein bottle? Miss Chen. Professor Tezik sighed, but their matrices were twinkling with barely suppressed amusement. Please stop breaking topology, at least until after lunch break. No promises, I said, watching my impossible shape dance through dimensions that technically didn't exist. After all, I've got a whole quantum mechanics class this afternoon. Who knows what humans aren't supposed to be able to do with wave functions? And somewhere, in the quantum foam between probability and imagination, I could have sworn I heard the universe laughing again. But this time, it was definitely laughing with us. Being the weird one, it turned out, wasn't just where I belonged. It was who I was supposed to be all along. The thing about accidentally revolutionizing galactic mathematics is that people start expecting you to do it again. Which is how I found myself standing in front of the Galactic Academic Council, trying to explain why humans shouldn't be banned from advanced physics classes. Let me summarize, said High Counselor Vexnor, their cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the quantum lights of the council chamber. In the past 6 months, you have redefined protein engineering, created a new branch of quantum topology, and now you claim to have solved the quantum gravity problem while daydreaming in temporal mechanics class? In my defense, I said, I was really trying to figure out why my coffee kept existing in multiple states simultaneously. The time-space stuff just kind of happened. Behind me, I heard Dr. Blob's sparkly bits arrange themselves into what was probably a facepalm. The council chamber was intimidating, to say the least. Picture the most pompous university lecture hall you can imagine. Then make it exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously while being decorated by beings who thought MC Escher was too geometrically conservative. The council members themselves were arranged in what they probably thought was a circle, but which kept intersecting itself in ways that made my eyes water. Miss Chen, another council member buzzed, their insectoid form flickering between probability states. Surely you understand our concern. Your species has been participating in galactic academia for less than a standard year, and you've already invalidated several thousand years of established theory. Only because your established theory didn't account for people thinking differently, I protested. Look, humans aren't doing anything special. We just see things differently. Like how we can understand music without breaking down its wave functions, or appreciate art without calculating its topological properties. That's precisely the problem, Counselor Vexnor said smoothly. Your species processes information in ways that defy our understanding, ways that cannot be properly quantified or controlled. It's disruptive. Disruptive? A familiar voice chirped as Pip materialized next to me, ignoring several council members disapproving quantum fluctuations. You mean like how humans disrupted your understanding of molecular biology? Or how they disrupted your assumptions about dimensional mathematics? Pip, I hissed, what are you doing here? Being a character witness, they bobbed enthusiastically. Also, Krathos and the rest of the molecular reorganization team are outside planning a protest if things go badly. Did you know Regellians can organize really effective protest chants in 9 different spectral frequencies simultaneously? Before I could respond, a new voice cut through the quantum noise of the chamber. Perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong angle. The speakers stepped forward, or rather unfolded themselves from a pocket of probability space. It was Dr. Zeiss, the Arcturian scientist from my quantum topology class, but something was different about them. Their cybernetic eyes weren't whirring with their usual cold calculation. Dr. Zeiss, Counselor Vexnor acknowledged, you've had the most direct observation of the humans' unusual methods. What is your assessment? The Arcturian scientist was quiet for a moment, their quantum-enhanced perception presumably processing something beyond normal space-time. I have spent the past 3 months attempting to understand how a human teenager managed to create a mathematical framework that our most advanced AI cannot fully comprehend. I have analyzed her brain patterns, studied her work methods, and reviewed every scrap of human scientific history I could access. I shifted uncomfortably. This didn't sound good for my case. And? The council prompted. And I have come to a conclusion that I find both disturbing and exhilarating. Dr. Zeiss's cybernetic eyes focused on me. Humans don't break our rules of physics and mathematics. They simply never learned to accept them as rules in the first place. The council chamber erupted in probability fluctuations and quantum chatter. Consider, Dr. Zeiss continued, raising their voice over the chaos. A species that evolved to see patterns without knowing why they work. That developed abstract thinking before formal logic. That created art before mathematics, music before wave theory, and started asking what if before they could possibly calculate the answers. That sounds incredibly inefficient, one council member observed. Exactly. Dr. Zeiss actually smiled. Something I hadn't thought their cybernetics were capable of. They do everything wrong, and in doing so, they sometimes stumble across things we never thought to try because we knew better. They're not breaking our rules. They're showing us that our rules were incomplete. I blinked. Wait, are you defending humans? I am defending progress, they replied, even if it comes in a form that makes my probability processors malfunction. The question isn't whether humans should be allowed in advanced classes. The question is, what else might we learn if we stop trying to make them think like us? The council chamber went quiet, a silence that existed in several quantum states simultaneously. Finally, High Counselor Vexner spoke. You realize what you're suggesting? Allowing humans unrestricted access to our highest levels of scientific knowledge without requiring them to adapt to our standard methodologies? Yes, said another voice. Dr. Blob, their sparkly bits arranged in a pattern I'd never seen before. Because their non-standard methodology is precisely what we need. Consider, every major breakthrough in galactic science for the past 10,000 years has come from expanding our understanding, from incorporating new perspectives, and now we have a species that literally dreams in quantum mechanics. Yeah, I added, finding my voice. And we're not even doing it on purpose. Imagine what might happen if we actually tried. The council exchanged looks across probability space. I held my breath, which, in a chamber existing in multiple dimensional states, was actually kind of tricky. Perhaps, Counselor Vexnor said slowly, a compromise is in order. We will not restrict human participation in advanced studies. However, they fixed me with a cybernetic stare. We will require human students to document their methodologies. Even if those methodologies consist of, as you put it, zoning out while thinking about coffee. I can do that, I said quickly. I mean, half the time I don't know how I'm doing what I'm doing, but I can try to explain it. It'll probably involve a lot of drawings and weird analogies, though. Acceptable, the council declared in multidimensional harmony. Furthermore, we will establish a new research division dedicated to understanding and incorporating human cognitive approaches. Dr. Zeiss, would you be willing to head this initiative? The Arcturian scientist's cybernetics actually glitched for a moment. I would be honored, though I request additional funding for mental health support. Trying to understand human thinking patterns has already sent 3 of my quantum processors into recursive loops. Hey, I protested. We're not that bad. Miss Chen, Dr. Zeiss said dryly. Yesterday you solved a temporal paradox by comparing it to a pizza delivery being both late and early at the same time. My cybernetics required a full restart. But it worked, didn't it? That's exactly my point. The council session concluded shortly after that, probably because several members were starting to show signs of cognitive strain from trying to process human logic. As we left the chamber, through a door that somehow managed to be both an entrance and exit simultaneously, Pip bounced along beside me. So, they chirped, how does it feel to have officially made human weirdness a field of scientific study? I considered this. Honestly, kind of relieved. At least now when I accidentally rewrite physics while daydreaming, I can call it research. Speaking of research, Dr. Zeiss said, falling into step beside us, while simultaneously existing in several probability states. Show off. I have a question about your solution to the quantum gravity problem. The part where you compared gravitational fields to, and I quote, a bunch of rubber bands having an argument about which way is down. Oh no, I groaned. Please tell me that's not going into the official documentation. It already has, they replied, their cybernetic eyes twinkling, along with your drawing of quarks as tiny breakdancers who really don't want to dance alone. Several quantum physicists are currently trying to drink away the realization that this analogy actually explains particle behavior better than their standard models. I buried my face in my hands. Great, I'm going to go down in history as the human who explained quantum physics with interpretive dance metaphors. Could be worse, Pip offered cheerfully. Remember when you tried to explain string theory using cat's cradle? Please don't remind me. I still get quantum mail from theoretical physicists asking for clarification on the wiggle pattern that looks like a duck. Dr. Zeez's cybernetics made a sound suspiciously like a chuckle. Welcome to the frontier of human-influenced science, Miss Chen, where breakthrough discoveries come with crayon illustrations, and some of our most complex mathematical proofs begin with, "So I was thinking about pizza." As we walked, and floated, and quantum-tunneled through the halls of the Galactic Academic Center, I couldn't help but smile. Sure, humans might do everything wrong by conventional standards. We might approach problems backward, solve equations through daydreaming, and explain complex physics using bad metaphors. But maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. A reminder that there's more than one way to understand the universe, even if that understanding sometimes comes with pizza analogies and rubber band physics. Being the weird ones, it turned out, might just be humanity's greatest contribution to galactic science. That, and our ability to imagine impossible things until they become possible. Plus, I was pretty sure I'd just figured out a unified field theory while thinking about spaghetti. But that could wait until after lunch. After all, even humans who accidentally revolutionize physics still need to eat.